Good morning. How are we doing? It's Paul here from the Cult of Cantona. A very good morning. It's been a minute. We've been taking some well-deserved time off because we've been running the channel for over a year, and other work commitments and family stuff had creeped in and dragged our attention over to the touchline. But we're back. Loads to talk about. Europa League, important match away to Lyon coming up on Thursday evening. It's a make or break season, make or break result for Manchester United away. I'm Paul Butler Lennox. How are you doing? At Paul Butler Lennox on Instagram, and you'll find me on social media. I'm an actor and a director and a podcast host, not only here, but in film and TV. So yeah, lots to talk about. What's been going on in recent weeks? To be honest, it's bar a couple of encouraging results. I think it's fair to say that this season is an absolute fucking write-off. And although that's maybe dampened our moods, it is important to say that there are some green shoots of potential success stories down the track. United are a football team that always invests in the future, and it seems as if Ruben Amorim, I think I got used to it by now, is building a team and a structure and a rebuild for what potentially could be a couple of exciting seasons ahead. So let's talk about some recent results. I suppose the more pressing result to talk about would be the Man City draw at Old Trafford, which was kind of a damp squib. But there's a couple of eventualities of a result like that. Both teams didn't turn up. It had the feeling, it felt like a, opening match of the season. Nothing was at stake. It was all very, like United's passing was all very askew. I felt that across the back, it was all very lackluster. I will say one thing, that Patrick Dorgu does seem like the real deal. I'm excited to see where things go from, but I am quite concerned about a couple of things based on what I saw the other day. Rasmus Højlund, as much as I like him, he does have to start scoring. If he doesn't start scoring for Manchester United, he's going to have to go. And I've spoke to a couple of other United fans about this as well. He does have everybody's favorite nephew vibe, which is nice because he seems sound and he makes all the right noises, and but his statistics are just not cutting it for Manchester United. I'd be less reluctant to let Joshua Zirkzee go because as he grows into the role, I think that he has a very different future ahead of him for Manchester United. Rasmus Højlund is, when you look at his stats comparative to Harry Kane's over the last 3 or 4 seasons, or at least his time in Bayern Munich, and you go, there simply is no comparison, and that's what Manchester United deserve. I think sometimes our nostalgia, empathy, and decency as a club sometimes lets us down. And in this case, unfortunately, I think that United deserve other options going forward. So looking forward, based on what I'm seeing from Rasmus, there's a couple of names being touted around the place, first of which being Liam Delap. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Manchester United need a proven goal scorer at the highest possible level to come in and lead the line at Manchester United. There's been numerous cases over the years, stemming back from the 1980s with Gary Bertels, to Rasmus Højlund recently, to numerous strikers over the years where they come in and it's just too heavy a burden to carry. Liam Delap is a good centre forward. You know, his return ROI and in terms of his stats and his are really good. But I mean, case in point, you look at someone like Sammy Smodux, who I was touting up last season about coming to Man United. But it's a good example of the step up and how the gulf in class really is a mentality one that nothing, like you need to be imperious like a Harry Kane, that nothing affects him, you know. Personally, I wouldn't go for Liam. I'd have his dad in for his long throws. Even now, to be honest with you, if it gets balls in the box for some players. But let's be quite honest, this season has been the season of Bruno Fernandes, if there are any positives whatsoever. With the distractions of Kobbie Mainoo's contract, obviously playing with his head. I mean, he's still a young kid, I get it, but, you know, with the distractions of that and Casemiro being hit and miss. Although, having said that, he did have a good game the other day. I think he had 11 tackles where he retained the ball against Man City. But you'd have to say that, you know, it's Bruno Fernandes' season. I think Roy Keane has been unduly and unnecessarily hard on him over the last couple of years. And Bruno does show time and time again that he's the only one that seems capable of playing for Manchester United, and he's also the only player, in my opinion, that would get into the top four every other, or should I say, we're not a top four team anymore, but the top four teams in the league, Bruno would walk into them and start. You know, I just want to pick up as well on the story of Paul Scholes, about Paul Scholes during the week, said that after his harsh criticism this season of Manchester United, one of the Manchester United players challenged him to come down to Carrington to have a conversation with him, and he passed on his mobile phone number, and nobody texted him or called him, which is an example of how lackluster and how the lack of sack, whoever that was in the Manchester United team, in order to go, right, come down and say it to me face. And he didn't text them back. Little Scholesy, all 5'7" of them, like Popeye going down to Carrington to sort whoever it was out. Answers on a postcard below who you think it might be, but I think it shows a lot about the mentality of the club. I mean, if you're talking about kind of 1990s United, you'd have the likes of Roy Keane, Eric Cantona, Brucey, all these lads. If they invited you down to Carrington, it's because you're going to get a fucking box in the face. But anyway, I digress. Continuing on, Europa League against Lyon. I mean, you can say what you want about United. Over the last year, we have been diabolically bad, inconsistent, but are unequivocally in a time of massive transition into what is perceived to be a better version of the team. It hasn't been an easy season in terms of news as well. Like, let's be really honest about it. When you're looking at the distractions of the new stadium, the Glazers yet again, inaction, the lack of action and inaction in and around the club, and the ownership yet again. Jim Radcliffe, I nearly called him Radford, Mike Rutherford, as a mate of mine calls him, the drummer from Genesis, the guitarist from Genesis. He looks like the guitarist from Genesis. Mike Rutherford, his interviews, although frankly honest and really open, the club, the team rather, could do without these type of distractions on a regular basis. I mean, as Deck, our co-host, says, I mean, every day is Manchester United news day, and it's true because there's every newspaper, every sports station, every podcast leads with a Manchester United story, and whether that's what type of tea bags they're using, or quite literally whether or not the staff are getting free lunches, leads. It's the news channels lead with Manchester United news. But Europa League chances, well, you'd have to say that United, out of all of the 60 odd or whatever teams in European competition, it is a stat that I think will, if successful in winning the Europa League this year, I think that United will. That's a stat that will serve us very well. We are the only team that's unbeaten in European competition, which is, I have to say, based on what I've seen in the early rounds of the Europa League this year, that certainly didn't look like that would be a statistic that we could claim, especially when we were away in Portugal late last year. But let's be honest, it's one to be proud of, and it's one that should give the players a lot of confidence going into Thursday night's game. I think that United will turn over Lyon, because Lyon are not the Lyon of Juninho in 2008-9. And you'd have to say that in European competitions, or in European competition, we do turn up. The players they seem up for it. They're aware that this is our only route into the Champions League this year, into next year. And it would seem as if United should go and get a result over there. And then you'd have to say, if United go away and get a result and then bring Lyon back to Old Trafford, even with a slight 1-0 lead or advantage, you'd say that United will get through. So it is looking very positive, I would say, if we don't shoot ourselves into the foot. I think the only way the Europa League goes belly up is if Bruno Fernandes, which he never does, finds himself injured. So let us know in the comments what you think. Do you think that we'll turn over? We'll turn over Lyon, no problem. And based on who the remaining teams in the competition, is it looking likely that Man United will win the Europa League? Jump in the comments there and let us know what you think. So there's a couple of other things to discuss before we duck out. Just popping on really just to say hello and to show you that there's still some blood in the water, as it were. But there is one thing that clearly we need to talk about, and that is the Renaissance man that is Anthony, lighting up La Liga with Real Betis. And it looks like, according to reports, that Atletico Madrid are coming in for Anthony for a huge price tag of 70 or 80 million. But it's kind of laughable because, yes, he's playing a bit better and the game's kind of suit him, but it's the same old Anthony doing the same old step over, pull in and shoot it straight at the keeper, with additional odd goal here and there. One swallow doesn't make a summer, so let's not get carried away. You wish him well. You hope he plays well, because you hope that he does get bought in the same way we hoped Jadon Sancho would get bought. But ultimately, United, this transfer window, summer 2025, is about shifting dead weight. So realistically, I'd like to see Anthony permanently moved on. Even if he's playing well, he's too big of a distraction, and he doesn't have his dad there anymore managing him. So I can't see him coming back to United. And if he does, he'll be back for a short time and moved on, I'd imagine. And Jadon Sancho has just proved us all right in our estimation of him, and he's in now causing problems in Chelsea. With the same old attitude problem, same old Jadon Sancho. I don't know why people. Isn't that what they say? The classification of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So you'd have to say that Jadon has to be moved on. So yeah, interesting kind of transfer window ahead, I would say. I think the only way United come away better off next season, and that's if in terms of some of the players that don't move on that we'd like to move on. I think that all of that can be forgiven if we get an out-and-out striker. Like Gorkias needs to come in. I think that has to be an absolute priority for Manchester United this season. And if it isn't in the transfer window, I think we'll be in big trouble yet again next season. I think failing that, if Harry Kane wants to come back after he wins the Bundesliga, I think that even if he was to drop down 10, 20% in terms of effectiveness, I still think he'd do really well at Manchester United. But that may not happen, him being a closet Arsenal fan. So we'll see. But Gorkias seems to be the man to come in and do a job for us. And it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. I mean, the guy's 28, 27 or 28, so he's not a young kid. We would expect him to come in and hit the ground running and do a job for us. Failing that, maybe an Usherman can come in and do a job for us. I don't know, but we need someone who's scoring a goal a game or every other game now. And, 20, 30 goal a season striker, or we may be in huge trouble next season. I do believe in what Ruben Amorim is doing. I do believe in what he's trying to put together. There are patches of play particularly in the last 3 or 4 games, where it's fascinating to watch, and you can see the team beginning to believe, a lot like Neo in The Matrix. And they're almost shocked when it kind of works out, I feel, sometimes. But let us know in the comments, in general terms, what you believe to be true about Ruben Amorim. Is he the Messiah? He handles the press really well. What do you think? Do you think he's doing the right things? He seems to be kind of flip-flopping more recently, particularly around Gary Neville's criticism of the team over the last couple of days. But maybe he just realises that Gary Neville has a huge influence on the Manchester United match-going public. I think he speaks from the heart. He's very honest a lot of the time. And I think, managers take time, especially young managers. It takes time. And there's one important fact that we all need to remember about this situation with Ruben, is that he did not want to take over. He wanted to come in. He didn't want to take over mid-season. He wanted to come in at the start of this summer for the start of next season and make changes over the summer period. And I feel for him. I feel for him in that this season will be over, and then they have to go and play friendlies, literally days after the end of the season, for what? 10 million pounds, 12 million euro, for what? To what end is that of any benefit to the club, bringing the team out halfway across the world again? I mean, it's all money. But there are some positive things on the horizon. As initially, I was initially a skeptic of the new stadium idea. I'm coming around to it. As a father and as someone who brings kids to Old Trafford, I believe that it's important to, improve the infrastructure around Old Trafford, particularly because Manchester United is a family club and people like to bring kids over. And I've witnessed it firsthand where kids get very bored before and after the game at Old Trafford, because obviously Salford is not Manchester city centre. There's not a lot for kids to do, apart from go to the pub with their dad before the game. And that's all well and good. That's fine. But society, the match, going public, and society is changing as a whole, and drinking culture, although can be a lot of fun, if you're 8, 9, 10, can get quite intimidating and triggering before and after games as well. And kids don't necessarily want to be in the pub all day. They don't want to be in the pub all day at home. Why on earth would they want to be in the pub all day at Old Trafford before and after the match? So the idea of this tent enclosure type thing with various different things for kids to do, and some all-encompassing, inclusive experiences around Manchester United, and the idea of having a larger museum and interactive experiences for the kids, and a place where you can go and hang out for the day and have an all-round Manchester United historical and exciting experience is appealing to a lot of families. So I get all that, and particularly when the architect explained in detail the plans and how the infrastructure can improve the area, it made me a lot more enthusiastic about what lies in store for the match going experience for the future. So yeah, all positive, you have to say, in terms of the development of that. Will they be able to deliver that in 5 years? Well, that remains to be seen. So if you like what we're doing at the Cult of Cantona and you would like to support the show, there's a couple of things you can do. You can follow us on YouTube and subscribe on the channel. You can like us on social media at the Cult of Cantona. You can get us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and you can, if you're really, really enthusiastic about what it is that we're trying to do overall with the Cult of Cantona show and channels, you can become a member on Buy Me a Coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Cult of Cantona there. So get involved. The Cult of Cantona. We shall see you very soon for a new episode with all the lads. And until then, keep the high hand low.